I'm gonna kind of. Okay. We call to order the City of Lowell Budget Committee meeting. Today, Wednesday, May 15th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Our roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett.
Here.
Councilor Harris.
Here.
Councilor Stratus.
Present.
Councilor Weathers. Here. Councilor Murray.
Here.
Committee member Petrie.
Here.
Committee member George.
Here.
Committee member D Wilson.
Here.
Committee member Annis is absent.
Okay, Steve, please come to the podium. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so the first thing is there are any changes to the agenda or anything that you want to say about the agenda? Okay, so we're going to move on to the old business, which is resume the consideration of the proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. First, I want to thank Jeremy for getting this all together, organizing our thoughts and questions. I really appreciate that. Hopefully it will make things a lot smoother tonight.
Glad to do it, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the committee's flexibility for the meeting time last week.
Okay. So that being said, we do have questions for discussion for this meeting. I suppose we just go down the numbers, start at number one, talk it through. If we can decide, make a decision or not, and then just move right along. So, one says, do we adjust how public works employees' hours are allocated to the general fund? The budget committee must estimate how many hours each public works employee is expected to spend on tasks related to general fund activity. I remember last meeting, you guys were talking about, it's, it is on the time cards. So, in any business I've ever been, time cards it's never perfect, but that seems to be a good judgment of allocation of funds. If they're on a certain job for streets for a certain time, water, sewer. So, thoughts?
I think it should, oh, sorry. If it is already accurately reflecting what they're doing in each category, then that's good. I mean, as accurate as we can get it, because then when we look at each fund, we need to be balancing. I don't know why we would take from each fund and help this fund. Rather, let's get them all accurate, know what the true cost is, and go from there. But if they're accurate, and I have no way of knowing that, but it sounds like they are.
To the best of the ability, right?
Yeah, can I say something on that, Jordan? So the timesheets, they're close representation. But there was a change a while back, and the timesheets are what's used for reporting, one of the insurances, thank you, workers' comp insurance, for tracking workers' comp insurance. What it was before is, there's all of us, but pretty much we have a water operator, wastewater operator, myself, and then before this budget, we have a part-time seasonal that helps mowing and cleaning and stuff. So before that, the guys, he was working wastewater, but all his hours in wastewater and all his hours in water. And what we found out is that's not appropriate because the allocation rate, but also for workers' comp, because every fund is a different cost to be able to, if for whatever reason, it's more hazardous to work at a water plant, So what we did that switch, and if you'll look historically, like clockwork, there's exactly what the allocation says up there. So for I'll just do me, for example, I can't read that, but I'm pretty sure it says 5% on parks, the public works director. 5% is 2 hours a week. That's just what the math comes out to. It's 5% of 2,080 hours. 2 hours a week is, probably a fairly good average But the thing that's different about this budget versus the other is we're funding our new full-time FTE, right? That's gonna absorb the hours from the previous budgeted person and the 10 seasonals that we budgeted. So one of the things that you guys are talking about moving, if there's a move to make, it would be that column right there, and it would be the first 3 people under city clerk, because 10 hours, you guys can do the math, 10 hours is 4 hours a week, so that's 4, 8, 10 hours on top of. Where's the new position, the yellow one, Jeremy?
It's right here, operator training.
Labor.
On top of 10 more hours, and, you know, for the last 10 years, the parks jobs have been being completed on somebody who only works 20 hours a week the entire year. So that would be one of the, if you guys were gonna do something, I actually would prefer that for those 3 positions. You know, we gotta leave something because we do help occasionally and everything else, but we do not. I'm just telling you guys, if you do the math throughout the whole year, there's no way. So especially if we're funding that one that Jeremy has is yellow right there, the new position. But you know, when you look at everything else,
Well, wait, is that one doesn't show the same as that one?
It does, but it doesn't, so.
which one are you good with?
Oh, the payment, just how the number is
Yeah.
implemented.
Well, and this one has,
Let me explain, okay,
Oh, okay.
this worksheet looks at each position as one position. So you see the column here has 100%.
Right. On ours, it just says 1.
All right, so you go to FTE allocation,
Yeah.
this looks at it as from an FTE perspective.
Mhm.
So we have, like the city administrator, that's 1 FTE.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
And then multiply the allocations, so that you have a proportional FTE for each function.
But what you're saying is that this is pretty accurate. You work X amount of hours in parks and X amount in sewer and X amount in, and you try to get it as accurate as possible.
we try, and then, you know, we have a discussion every year about it, but the thing that's different about July 1st moving forward is if the budget committee council passes that proposed new FTE that's in the yellow there, you know, we're adding more hours than's ever been budgeted to there, right? But still keeping the hours for the rest of public work staff. You know, the intent is to get rid of it's not even on here anymore, the temp seasonal, that one that we hired just for May to October. And move it over, you know, to water, sewer, streets, where, you know, 90% of my day and both the current staff members work, you know. And like I said, we have a temp seasonal right now that's been doing all the landscaping, mowing, so what he's sick right now. And then prior to that, our maintenance, I don't know what his title is, but our boss position, you know, he's been doing the mowing. When I started here, he got hired originally for the temp seasonal mowing thing, and then he just got turned into a full-time employee. And, you know, we mow minimal from November to April, you know, we keep up on the right of ways and stuff like that. So if you took the allocation for all the hours of my staff, you know, the 5, the 10, the 10, and the 250, if it gets funded, and then you got the 7%. So if you look at the bottom, it's 0.625, right? And then Jeremy has the time up here. So if you look at just the staff that I'm doing, you know, that's a significant amount of staff time, and regardless of how you look at it, you know, we have to base it on 52 weeks because that's what's in a year. So yes, May to October, you know, we probably are going to be spending total staff time, not one person, you know, 20, 30 hours a week in the park. And then outside of that window, you know, it might be 5 hours a week. So that would be a very appropriate spot. The rest of them are pretty close to what they are, you know.
Right, so the parks and mowing stuff, that's kind of sort of smooth out throughout the year. But
Jeremy, can you go across the top and starting at the admin fund, tell us which funds are administered from the general fund versus their own fund?
Okay, everything except building, water, sewer, streets, and BBJ is general fund,
So everything to the left of building is general.
correct?
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
And for the others, the title corresponds to the fund.
So there is an adjustment we could make here then, in at least Max's opinion, because I would state that, yeah, they do stay the same from year to year unless we make a change that affects the review of that.
Well, for example, maybe I'm getting in the weeds, but when the turbidity issue happened in the dam, all that stuff that happened, and you guys had to spend a lot more time in certain functions than you maybe normally would in a normal year. I think it's important to see those costs hit that fund, so we know the true cost of, well, yeah, we had to spend this on water fund. I can simplify a lot of things, but then you're like, okay, so that's a bad year, here's a good year. So then we know what we need to charge for water, you know, so that's why I like the true cost of time to hit those as well. But I think that's what you're saying, is you try to get really close.
Yeah, and that's one thing, you know, like I said, when we turn the timesheet in, I mean, I literally can put all, you know, we recently switched to one payroll. I literally can put all 173 hours, you know, say on streets. But when we turn it in, you know, the computer system is off, whatever this is established, that's how it's gonna work. And you're right, in November, it was, you know, September to January, really. More overtime than I've ever when I worked here, you know, there's a lot of things. So yes, it probably should have been captured, because when you go back to look at that minus timesheets, you know, because regardless we put it, it's hard to capture in, you know, you pull a report that Jeremy wants to say, I wonder what we, you know, how much labor went into, especially if we get some kind of reimbursement or some money from the government.
Yeah.
You know, yes, we can pull timesheets, we can, but it'd be a lot easier just to pull and say, oh, there was, you know, 64 hours overtime in the first month.
So the system is set up, you put your hours in and it automatically charges the way we've set it up. It does, so there's no going in and entering time by the code.
Well, I'm sure,
Making
I'm not
sense.
saying there isn't, I'm just saying how it works now. There could be, you know, if, when you turn the timesheet in, if I had, you know, 3 hours in the streets one week and then the rest in water and sewer, maybe an hour in park, you know, if you input like that. I don't know how to use the bill-pay system or the, you know, but.
It's a little more work, but
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood. So those actuals are not then rolling up into.
No.
no.
No,
So-
this, whatever gets approved or whatever is submitted by budget,
Okay,
you know, it does, for example, if I only worked in wastewater, right, period. My time is still gonna get allocated exactly like you see here, 2 hours a week to parks, an hour and a half to community development every week, an hour to court, every week, regardless of what I time sheet.
okay, so I would just like to say, and I don't know that that's even possible to do it another way, but that would be my preference if that was a thing. So we're seeing the true amount of hours, X amount of hundreds of hours going to the water fund, and oh, now we have a sewer problem, they go here, but then I had to go to the office, whatever. That's in a perfect world. I mean, that's how, you know, at my employer, we have to very specifically put in codes that relate to.
And that's how we've had to do it, you know, with the federal government, so, I know that's probably, I don't know if that's a system we can go to, only for the future, only because then it's going to, like, when you were doing, you guys should have been all the water system.
Well,
You
we
know.
do have required each day everywhere, you know, but
Well, I
one
understand,
person,
but
yes, a majority, you know, I would say with very high confidence at 90%, because other stuff happened during that time too, but.
right,
I
and
would say-
I get that, but at the same.
Yeah, we're not gonna track
The
like
way,
a CPA every 6 minutes or something.
Right,
no,
right.
but you have to be, do it the best you can. It's never gonna be perfect, ever. But right now, we can't really tell ourselves exactly what we spend on water through that thing, because in terms of labor, because of this, and it's nobody's fault, it's just how we did it.
Well, and this is a one-off for sure. Well, not, it was, at the time, it was. Yes.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we can't tell where we are spending from a budget allocation standpoint, but we do have timesheets. And we can pull a detailed report of exactly how much time we spent.
That's true.
Well,
By week.
we could, but let's say it's 10 years down the road, right?
Right.
Let's say we funded another FTE and maybe another person in general fund, you know, a helper. That would be nice, instead of saying, and what if I'm not here, none of my guys said, oh, Gail, why don't you go pull the payroll from, what was it, 23? You know, and let's, you know, you could do it, yes, but if it was just in the computer system, it's a done, You know, so I think it's cleaner for budgeting, for preparations and moving forward. The water plant has always consumed more time than wastewater plant since I worked here because it's not just the treatment facilities. It's also everything outside of the water plant, distribution and outside of collection. So most of our, well, obviously leaks.
Right.
You know, everything we do residuals in the distribution every day. We don't do that in the sewer plant. So, you know, to have it even split like that, I think that's just how it's always been for so long, you know? But I'm not talking about any other funds. I'm just saying, if I was to do something, that would be my recommendation when the meeting goes over. And also, as everybody knows, last week's meeting, you know, the general fund is where we need a little bit of help. The water and sewer are not. We are very good in those funds, but you know, labor is by far our most expensive. So just by changing that number, I think you guys would be surprised. It's not just a couple dollars, you know, because it's not just their hourly rate, it's all the benefits that go with it. Everything is allocated that way. Overtime, you know, insurance, everything. So it could add up pretty quick.
Before we continue.
So with this allocation, all of that overtime, some of it got charged to the general fund.
Yes. Yep, and we've had that discussion, but yes.
I mean, like you said, you can pull a time card, but that's not gonna help us. It's one thing if it's straight time, but it's another thing.
So just go to percentages.
Right, so I'll just give you guys an example. We have somebody that's on standby every day. So every paycheck, you know, the way we track standbys in the overtime column. So we're monthly, so last paycheck, he had 30 hours overtime. He actually had 31 because we did have 1 hour overtime for water issue. So that 30 hours of overtime, which just counts to his check, got allocated across all the funds also.
And
You
that's
know.
the only part, only because we're struggling with the general fund,
Right.
you know, when we know we could, if we were charging it a little. more.
No overtime, standby or on call or anything, in my opinion, and me and Jeremy talked about this, should ever be charged anything other than water and sewer.
Yeah,
Because overtime is not triggered till you work your 40th hour. There's no point in my life I've ever worked that in any other fund but these two, you know. Once again, you'll see in the budget, Jeremy has a budget, it's not a big number, but it's a relief, you know. I think the overtime budget for, I don't know what it is for all of general fund, but just in like parks, I think it's $3,000 or something. And I'm not saying that Sam's not gonna get overtime, he's working in parks very often either, so I think
I don't,
pretty rare.
I don't know if that's the case, because I would like to double check that.
Double check.
Because the overtime, for instance, because we have overtime budgeted specifically in water and sewer, I just don't, I don't think it's the case. I'd like to review with the accountant and get back to you that public works overtime specific for water is getting charged to the general fund. I don't think that's how it's said.
well, that's good.
Separate from the overtime issue. What I'm hearing from Max is that maybe we could, A, more accurately represent the amount of time in water and sewer by shifting out of general fund. And B, that would help ease the general fund. How much could we shift over
Right,
with the water and sewer still being solved?
Well, we can do, I've got the worksheet up here. We can do some calculations, right now.
okay. Let's,
So are we looking at the parks allocation specifically, reducing that?
Yeah, so, yes.
I think so.
What are the numbers that you had? Like, you had your recommendation, what should those 5 numbers be?
The 5 numbers, well, I mean,
Yours and then the operator.
well, the one is just a placeholder, there, the operator training. So yeah, with the exception of the highlighted yellow one, which that's gonna be their primary, this is the new positions for eliminating.
they're gonna be in parks.
They're gonna be in, you know, 25 parks, 25 water, 25 sewer, the rest in streets.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yep, And that's gonna-
Makes sense then.
absorb, you know, our part times that we have now.
But you're thinking 3, 4, and 5, those.
So position, yeah, up, what Jeremy currently has up there, I don't know if it's the same as in the sheet, I think it is. So I would put it down, my recommendation would be the director and both those lead operator positions. Right, at 3%, which is 1.8 hours or something, I can't remember exactly what it is, but I can do the math. That's still, you know, 54 hours a year for each of those people to be in that fund. So 150 hours total outside of the person that we have budgeted in the parks fund.
Can you figure that out, Jeremy?
Yes,
Please?
So it's interesting, sorry. It's interesting to me. That in the water fund, the budgeted overtime for this current fiscal year is 8,022. The projected is 8,022, and the proposed next year is 8,547. So that doesn't appear that that's being charged as actual unless a projected, you think that would be a lot higher because of the overtime. Didn't you have a lot of overtime in water this current year?
Just in that window there, yeah, with quite a bit.
You think we're gonna hit that again this year?
Seems like the projected would be a lot
In my opinion, I would say yes, and
So-
our early indicators think it's gonna be worse than last year. Maybe not for the whole duration. but
Because it's not really. it's not-
They're gonna start later too, aren't they?
A lot has to do with this snow belt, you know.
Especially cases, they told us.
Yeah, I think they're changing their timeline a little bit. You can find out. Make sure it's accurate.
I can't do that.
I can't either. I'll forget you.
okay, so, we're gonna do some scenarios here. All of the personnel costs for the general fund total $176,799. $176,799. So what we're gonna do. We're gonna reduce this to 3. And then. We'll just. Take that difference and split it between water and sewer. Okay, and Max, you said both the lead operators should go to 3% for parks?
Both of them, yep.
Okay. Okay, so the. That reduced general fund expenditures by $16,478.
15,000 what?
$16,478.
And. And what? Cost of the general fund for the COLA.
Are these numbers in that draft you gave us, is that the aggregate of all the city employee
Yeah,
wages at the current time? And then the percentage, if you multiply that
Oh, I
times
see.
everybody's wage, come up with this number?
Say that again.
And question number 4. Yeah, cost of general fund percent COLA. Is that if we gave just for argument's sake, if we gave a 0.5% raise across the board to every city employee, that would raise in the aggregate, all those city employee salaries, it would make the general fund go up 700.
Correct.
Okay,
Based on the other allocation.
yeah, based on the old allocation.
Right, yeah, so it'd be less
Now it'd
than
be
that.
So it'd be less than that with this,
With
the
this.
general as well.
so that means,
And I can actually tell you what that's gonna be.
But the point is, I'm not saying we will, but we give them 5% raise, that's raising the general fund $7,000.
Yeah, less than 7.
Yeah, so,
But we have to make sure that this water and sewer
Yeah.
fund.
They overbalance.
This new.
yes, I agree,
And then, because it's cold, we'll hit that.
yeah.
Right, but we also talked about not doing that price reduction since we'd already made, which was about over 17%.
Okay, so to Tim's question,
Yeah.
with this new allocation, this is what a pay raise would cost the general fund. If you want to do a 3.5% pay raise with the new allocations, the cost of the general fund would be $4,100.
So with the new allocations, it would still be over a $12,000 savings on the general.
Correct.
If you did that at 16 and then did that.
And that's still with the $8,000 study. Did we just solve it? Well, now you gotta check the, should we check the water fund and?
The
Is
cost,
that in here too?
the cost of the water and sewer is gonna be 8,200 split between them, and they can absorb that. The question for you is, do you want to adjust the fees commensurately to reduce the resulting decrease in fund balance?
Say that again.
Okay.
So the cost to the water and sewer fund is going to go up $8,200. Unless you adjust the fees to cover that, the fund balance for both of those funds is going to go down.
So if we leave the water rates the same,
Yeah,
that's gonna bring it down to about, we'll still have an increase of 9,000.
You're saying not decrease.
not
the same, yeah.
Keep the water rates flat, and go from over 7.
Right now, the proposed budget shows a decrease,
Yeah,
but we're saying
Sewer might get close, but.
that wasn't projected to be decreased.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
Oh, it'd be split between the two, so the water fund would actually be about 13 or 14.
Yeah.
And the sewer would go down by 4.
but
But
if we don't decrease the rates, we can cover everything, right?
Yes, the projected ending fund balances for water and sewer are pretty good through fiscal 26. I'm not worried about their financial condition. There is a big decrease in the sewer fund because the recommended budget uses accumulated fund balance. So there's a deficit of 129,000 in the sewer fund. That brings the balance to 98,000 because the balance is already high.
So I'm curious as to, so we're looking at that 7% reduction for the operators. Sorry, Jim. And then a 5% reduction from general fund for max. If we know that the increases of overtime and things like this, what we're seeing is because of the drawdown, why are we shifting it to the sewer, not all to the water? It seems like the water fund can absorb that with the sewer fund.
Not as much.
Well, I think what you just said, that traditionally we split them 50-50 as if they're equal.
I just meant that there was additional cost on the sewer fund because of the drawdown.
And the water fund, and the water fund.
You didn't have to do work to keep that.
This
I
is-
thought we had an almost reach.
That was for
No, that was just from weather.
That's
We get that regularly.
Yeah, that's
The only adverse side effect at the sewer plant was our backwash water goes there from the water plant, so we treated more water. That's the only difference. So yes, in turn, it costs a little bit.
Looking at question 3. If we didn't buy the product, would that cover the overage that we just added to the water and sewer? So the budget includes a payment for a new truck out of water and sewer. If we did not have a payment for water and sewer, out of water and sewer for this truck, would that bring us back to close to even for this new labor allocation?
What's the water fund number, Max? 230?
230, yeah. I think we put under capital or vehicles and rolling stock, maybe?
All right, so the budgeted loan payment, first year loan for the truck in the water fund is $6,000. So if you eliminated that, if you eliminated the truck and the resulting first year of loan payment, that would it wouldn't completely offset that increase, but it would be close.
And then we can always reevaluate this next year.
Yeah.
Right, because it wasn't a need, it was a want.
Because Max, you said that you guys can live without this truck.
It's,
Pardon?
I was just reiterating to Max that he said they can live without the truck, that it was more of a want and a need.
correct.
So if we chose to do that, then we could assure that we would kind of offset the water.
And I'm, and we're not needing to.
Well, eventually, but you know, we do have 2 brand new trucks still.
No, I'm not.
Oh, for the city, I think.
We have 3 rigs total. We have a 2019 Ram, we have a 2017 Ram, both of them are less than 10,000 miles. Yeah. However, the issue that I initially brought up, and this is why, that's right, not only just the 4x4, but the ability to be able to, you know, at least a 3/4 ton bigger to haul the tractor, you know, if we had to take it in for service, you know. And that's why I told you guys, to be honest, you know, there was a lot of ifs in there, you know. Yeah, and when we're talking about stuff like this, in my opinion, that'd be the easiest and first thing to get rid of, you know. We can always talk about it again later, you know. Not just, not
No
later.
for number 3.
Yeah.
So we entered number 3 just now.
I believe so.
So we've answered that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just, I want to make sure I'm tracking everything.
Right,
For number one, to go back to number 1, are we comfortable with the allocation that we just punched into the?
I think everybody likes the change, is comfortable with the change, if I'm hearing correctly.
Are we referring to splitting between water and sewer or sticking?
No.
to water?
The moving the numbers from
We're just-
out of the general into
Water.
water and sewer.
And so.
Okay,
Are there any,
so yes, let's do those.
So did you hear him though?
You've already done it, yeah.
He hasn't done it.
No,
Yeah.
you split it between water and sewer, reduce the 3, put them just to water.
It should go back, it should go to 49.5% for the operators for water, 42.5 for the
hold
sewer,
on, let's take this one step at a time.
49.5.
Go back up to public works, you change that one, right? Okay, whatever.
Oh, Tim, are you saying put a little bit more of the allocation to water?
All of the allocation,
All the water.
that's where our overtime's going, and that's where we're spending extra money. And then 42.5 for this.
Well, let's talk about that
Well,
because
this is only just for that parks portion.
Yeah, exactly.
one operator is specifically water, the other is sewer. So that's one thing we need to figure out is if one operator is going to be more heavily weighted than the other.
When the drawdown happens, don't all 3 of you respond to the water plant more?
Well, our daily duties, what Jeremy's referring to is, you know, technically, one guy is primarily wastewater, one's primarily water, and that's true, you know, we do rotate to keep everybody cross-trained, and then, of course, there's weekend coverage. But yeah, so, you know, 1 month, position 1 is doing water plant, and the next month, he's doing sewer plant, they rotate, but majority of the time, yes, when we're having major issues, it is the main water person's focus. Yes, everybody is there, but that sewer person goes over and takes care of requirements of the sewer first and then comes back, so. You know, it's not exactly all that, but. Yeah,
Well, which number are you comfortable with?
I'm totally fine with the split that he originally had, but I also see the argument about the drawdown. I'm anticipating the drawdown to be worse, but I'm not anticipating staff time to be worse. We have historical data, we have controls, we have all the equipment we need to buy,
Changing the process.
extra chemicals, you know,
We're ready.
we're ready and to the extent that you can.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, so.
yeah, so, you know, maybe only a % difference, Tim, and the reason I say that is, whatever you guys had, if you want to favor one more than the other, and the reason I say that is, you know, you're not just moving labor, you're moving everything tied to this, right? Which I'm fine with getting out of the parks, I don't think it needs to go there, but I think the split with the water and sewer, you know, if you think about on average, you know, I think more time should be allocated towards water. Like somebody said, I think we should, and the reason why is When we get a call out, or we get an overtime, or we have a line break or something, that's water plant operations, right? But it's just all a matter of how deep you guys wanna go into it, but I'm fine with the split that you guys have right there too. The water and sewer fund can absorb that little bit of money that you guys just need.
So the person in blue is water. What do we want that to be?
I think it's fair where it's at. That's the majority, that's the,
Is it 40? I can't do this.
that's,
49.5.
that's the
Okay, and then-
7% going over to the water.
Is what?
The one right below it, 46, 46.
Right.
Okay, so we're talking about splitting it that way. I can't see it, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of a.
There you go.
Well,
Oh, wow.
46 and 40,
my glasses just.
49 and
Too
46.
good as they used to.
Okay, that makes sense, because water can handle the hit
Yeah,
better
but they
than
would
sewer.
fix it.
And what we're hearing is, and that's where a lot of your time makes sense.
So basically, we moved 3.5% of the sewer operator's time over to water from parks. We moved 7% of the water operator's time from parks to water, and then we split 5%, so 2.5% of Jeremy's time or of Max's time to water and sewer.
Sounds good.
Is this where we're keeping it?
I could argue that we should move the other 2.5% of Max's time to water as well, and we leave the sewer operator with even split, but the majority of Max's time is also with water.
I guess my point is that wherever the labor lands for each of these funds, then don't we use that plus materials and other issues to then figure out the rates for sewer and water? And I don't want to be raising water rates if we don't have to, because we're doing a shell game because we moved some labor here. And again, that's why I go back to as accurate as possible. And then we'll know, well, what should we charge for water and what should we charge for sewer? And that's the reality of it. And then that should be looked at more of a historical, not just it's a 1-year aberration, because last year and maybe the next few years are going to be bad for water because of the drawdown. But I just want it to fit where it's supposed to fit, if that makes sense.
Well,
That's why I think we have to ask later. what the
well, we
system's
do,
capable
and then
of.
I also think we haven't done it in the past, so until we started going forward.
Right.
In the meantime, we have to kind of make some educated guesses. And.
And that's fair. We
Yeah.
can't just like start now.
No, and I agree, if we
Before-
do really nice, we can do it that way.
And then next year, when we're talking about water rates, we're like, well, this really is what it costs, and this is gonna cost this for the next 5 years, because the dam drawdown is gonna do that to us, and that's the reality, and I think the public would better react to that if we knew, well, that's why we're,
Well, the water, that study is something we wanted to do too, but again, that's gonna take.
but anyway, but I get
Yeah.
that this year it needs to be fuzzy now,
Yeah.
to some degree.
Unfortunately.
Yes, no, that's,
I feel good about it because I think it makes
it's more
sense.
accurate, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense to what.
Jeremy, is the city of Lowell required to do an annual workers' comp study, survey / report? Of the city's required to do that? like a-
We are at 4 hours, right?
Okay, so I'm thinking moving forward. I think it's at the end of the calendar year, unfortunately, because when I do my report at my job, I have to do some back looking and moving things forward and stuff and projecting, but I think, and when I have to be as accurate as possible with what department I put that person's labor time into. And I think you do also, when you do the report, could we use that, like we were talking just now, moving forward to, when it comes time to look at the budget, kind of back look at that report and use that report for guidance for this stuff here? Is that possible, or is that a bad idea? Good idea?
This is relevant to that.
Okay.
My experience is dated. But workers' comp, the whole point of that is this job safety. So if you have an administrator who's charging 20% of your time to water and sewer, you're
Yeah.
not working in the water plant.
No, right,
So using the workers' comp report won't be accurate.
Well, working.
I mean, working in this, this,
right,
if you use those allocations to pay your workers' comp is gonna go sky high if we're gonna charge
if we
Jeremy
use those,
oversight.
well, yeah, if we use those,
Yeah,
okay, all right, well, that
I mean,
makes
you
sense.
just
I
have to be careful about what it is we're,
Right, because we're talking actual versus budget, but what I was hearing earlier was we want to get it as close as we can. So if you get it as close as you can, then you look using actual data, not budgeted data. So,
but that is actual for Jeremy because oversight.
right,
And the water plant still gets charged as admin and work.
but right, because he's not down there pouring chemicals.
We don't
and
have
stuff
to
like
pay
that.
extra workers' comp. For,
Well, no, I'm saying use workman's comp as a guide, not, I wouldn't take my workman's comp report and back into. Make it look like this, I was just saying, use it more as a guide to. What's water, what's sewer, what's parks, what's this, you know, of course, admin,
is water and sewer different on the workers' comp report?
I think there are different codes for,
right.
water and wastewater.
Anyway,
That's what I meant,
Could be
I
helpful.
misunderstood. It can be helpful, is what I meant.
That's a great point, both of you, and to your point, John, that might be more useful for our operators.
Right. Yeah,
Especially to see the true split between water and sewer.
Right. I mean,
Put it down.
in my job, I have to put some of our engineers' time into our shop time because he physically walks down, right, goes to a welder or a fabricator and says, hey, this was this is that, da, da, da. So he's actually in the shop, so he's created that risk. So that's an adjustment I have to make every year. And so, okay, yeah, but in this case, Jeremy's not going to, well, he might, I don't know if you go down the water can. Even if he walks in there, boom, there, I mean, you know, he's in there for a certain amount of time. For a particular reason. But. Okay, so. Back to the question, so we are adjusting them, or we're all okay with the way we've adjusted it?
Yeah.
One is done.
Okay, great.
I think we answered 3 as well.
So 3, we're taking the truck off the way.
What happened to 2?
We're going to get back to 2.
Just because we
We're
discussed,
doing the odd ones first, Lisa.
Yeah.
well, Lisa, we discussed that in terms of adjusting, and so we already said that.
I know we,
Just confused.
I know we just came to consensus on this, I'm sorry, but maybe we should skip to question 9.
That's what I was.
I was thinking the same thing.
The ones that are related.
Yeah.
If we need to raise the sewer rate that much, that's to break even. That was before we just added more cost to it. So I want to know what is the number for us to break even?
What is Stewart's break-even point now, at what rate?
And on that point, maybe I'm just misremembering the last name with a lot of information. Did we decide we are not pursuing a new gate at the sewer plant?
I think the gate is still in there.
Okay, that's what I couldn't remember, because I remember some talk about,
So we didn't need it here.
Well, it's
and
not
that
gonna,
the Army Corps,
It's not gonna happen,
period.
period.
We're not gonna get permission from Army Corps to improve the road at the lake.
Can we add a number 10 on here?
For what?
Remove the gate.
Remove the gate.
What do we have in there, Jeremy? I think we had 20, right?
25,000. So we're removing the sewer gate?
We're not gonna do it.
I'm asking,
Max just said there's no way, if you said maybe,
Well,
maybe we keep it in.
we got the answer and it's not a maybe. Well, it could be, we could, but the money we'd have to spend to get permission is not worth it.
Okay,
Because it would trigger everything in the wetland, everything in the floodplain, just to extend 35 feet.
Then we cut it.
then that saves some money we do. So we need to, Jimmy, I'm with you, we need to.
Yeah, number 10.
like, if we cut the gate
Yeah.
and we've changed the allocations, what is the new reality?
It's the- Well, we knew water was okay, but sewer was.
Okay, so I'm still,
Because we were gonna raise it to 85.
so we were gonna decrease the water, right?
Well.
You're right.
I think we decided not to do that.
Level.
Well, I'm trying to understand what the original thought was, yeah. But we're not gonna do that now.
What's in the budget right now is the sewer rate at the current, the sewer rate at existing, no increase.
That's what I thought.
That's what it says.
But it also says we would need to raise it almost $20. To break even. And we just added an additional cost. Of course, we can then tell them, okay, but
In the original budget message, Jeremy said that we were gonna, to keep sewer the same, we were gonna use some of the beginning fund balance and cash on hand to offset the cost. And before you guys,
Okay, but now we don't have that.
well, you don't, and you need to look at the numbers, I agree.
Okay, so Jeremy, can you help us know that
Yes, I'm just waiting on my workbook,
right now?
we appreciate it very much.
Yes, we do, Jeremy.
Preface that, we appreciate you.
You be kicking me off the council.
What did we ever do before spreadsheets? Good Lord, we'd be sitting here with.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of advocacy going.
That's right.
My dad used to bring home his ledger, big green ledger.
Yeah,
Well, Jeremy's doing the math, and we looked through some of the questions that don't require numbers.
Want to do it?
Yeah, I think that's, we have, question number 5 doesn't require any numbers,
Okay.
it's just a yes or.
What number was that?
Number 5,
It's gonna get back to
Oh, really?
five, oh.
Number 5, he recommended to pass the climate, to eliminate Oak Ridge Police Department's contract. The contract provides for 40 hours of damage control per month. And adding it back to the budget would cost an estimated 38,173. What you would have. I think the question on that was, we've cut the 38,173, but how much should we tweak or add to for the
and that's question number 6.
one time, is that number 6? Oh, okay, great.
And Jeremy, in
So-
his email, he had some conversation, he kind of came up with something great. And I forgot to print the email.
So I would suggest that we stick with we cut the 38,000 and then we add $8,313, which would give us, what would that be, 100 hours?
Well, if you keep reading though, Jeremy said it's likely to be double if
So it would give us 50 hours.
on a call out thing, yeah.
That's kind of, it's for Blackberry Jam.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, that's paid for by Jan.
okay, then that's.
I think, I'm pretty sure, you know.
Is that paid for by Jan?
it is.
Okay, so that's.
okay.
But if we need code enforcement or something comes up, we want some money to be able to call, and they said they would do it that way and bill us. So I think in my mind, well, I think everybody's already said it, we need to cut it. And. what do we
Cut it
need?
and add.
So he's gonna have to help us with some numbers again.
$8,313 that I added. A nice easy math.
Where did you get that?
83.13 per hour.
100 hours.
100 hours, $8,313. At double time rate, that would give us 50 hours of police services a year to do code enforcement. You can't possibly slow it.
Yeah, and that's more than I was thinking this afternoon, when I was thinking about it, I was thinking like 3,000 to 5,000. But 8 to 10 is probably more.
So we paid about $30,000 on that, instead of like a some response.
Yeah,
That's on that good point.
okay.
And when we say code enforcement, what are we referring to?
There may be a situation to where Jeremy has a code violation, he's concerned about personnel safety to serve the person with the code message, with the code.
Or help require them, you know. we
Or,
have to-
or
we have to
citation,
hold them
that gets
to
that
the-
far, we have over to do citation.
Yeah.
Well,
Although we.
There's a sheriff's department out there. Yeah, 911, the sheriff comes, and I bet you Oak Ridge would come down if they're not doing it.
We're just talking about something extreme. I mean, if something we really get.
Police like to be in front of the action.
We
Well,
should-
not necessarily that serious, because we're talking about citations, that's.
If the sheriff.
Oh, for the sheriff?
Not gonna come for
Yeah.
code enforcement.
No, well, that's what I'm saying, but something's really.
We get a call, some guy's in my garage with a gun,
it's gonna be over.
They're gone.
Yeah, that doesn't
Oh, I
matter.
was
for the
gonna say,
contractor.
I don't want to-
Yeah, yeah.
Always have that
I
done.
don't care. We'll pay you. Up to, but
I just think it's wise to have something in the budget for it, as long as we can swing it.
right, yeah, no, I think
I
$100.
like that. That's a good.
Well, it can be a planned thing, you know, I mean, we know who's out there and who needs to be served, it doesn't, we're not talking about a 911
Right.
emergency at midnight.
And we're not talking about flippantly using it, we can discuss it when we have something coming up.
At the end of the year, if we don't use it, we return most of the, you know, we
Yeah.
return a good portion of it.
Yeah.
20 hours of it, then.
Well, it's just sitting there.
30 hours later.
Well, that would actually be closer to 25 and 27 hours by his calculation, is it's gonna double it, plus it's 2 hour block, so it's $330 every time we call them, so. If you take the 8,000, divided by 330, you're gonna be down to about 25 pounds, or 25 trips.
Well.
Yeah.
But that's.
Yeah, you can serve several things.
I was gonna say,
Do we know how many we had last year?
We didn't do the.
Yeah,
That I'm aware of. Not like that,
not like that, it's.
but he's willing to do that, when I brought him on with him, he said, yeah, we talked about
We had
that.
some rigs,
Yeah,
you know, we've had some door knocks and stuff like that, but, there was a couple citations
There
actually.
there was
that-
a couple, he served a criminal summons that
Yeah.
was cited through municipal court.
So
We had a
that's,
couple random patrols at the school, you know,
And he lives
under
here.
request. But,
yeah, he lives here, so.
well, now somebody made the comment about emergency. I can tell you guys firsthand, when there was a gun, I'd say where, 911 was called, of course, which goes to Lane County automatically.
Yeah.
However, depending on where they're at, typically the closest person is Crestwell, right? Oak Ridge, there's 2 state police that live here, there's an
But
FBI.
that's not on our contract, if we have a 911 call.
Well, no, there is no contract. You pay for it out of your property
That's
tax,
right.
and you pay a lot of money to the sheriff's department.
Well, that's what I'm saying, even if they have overage come down, that's not.
Well, they let have it, it's just when it's a
Yeah.
situation like that, it's whoever, so
Yeah,
it was.
that's
Usually I think we have.
Yeah, we have.
Mutual aid, they'll show up.
Yes,
The only thing we're risking is the word getting out that there's never a cop checking the speed, but I don't think that's gonna.
well, the sheriff had 2 people pulled over yesterday morning,
Yeah.
store for speeding, so
Yeah,
are they rare? It's pretty rare.
yeah,
But
but I think at this point, we're,
Well, anytime I had any kind of an
Always
accident,
you know, there's.
it wasn't the police department, it was the sheriff's.
Yeah,
Right, and so we have a court here that we can make a summons, as you guys would see some, we need people to cut their grass, if they really won't cut their grass. You go through the process and then you get the sheriff to help you with it.
Yeah.
So I think we could use the sheriff more than you realize.
I don't think the sheriff would do one of that.
I know, I think so,
Well,
down,
if it creates an action, so in other words, if I'm doing an eviction,
Bill, that's you and your contact as a private citizen
Yeah.
and business owner. That's different than the city calling the sheriff to implement our own ordinance.
but if you go through a court system that we have here, then it requires a sheriff to.
I mean, we have
That's
emails
how
from
we
the
do it.
sheriff's office.
I don't think they cite into our court,
I don't think
they
they,
cite to the.
yeah,
Well, the other thing is that we don't have cops here writing tickets, why do we have a court?
well, or, yeah, the communication for it, or, yeah,
well, citations for, code.
but then it would go to Oak Ridge's court.
But I thought about that too, yeah.
So to answer your question, Bill and Sheriff, I don't know about right now at this moment, but 2016, Joyce and I was doing code enforcement. Because we pay the sheriff, that's the first person we call, and they will not support a city on things like noxious vegetation. Somebody needs to clean up their garbage, you know, nor would they do, we requested some patrols at the school, actually, because there's been a lot of complaints about speed. And what we actually did, we was asking a bridge, we came out, I just sent them out today, but
We can't.
But a lot of things have changed since 2016 also. So they hired several more officers, so, yeah, we can just see what happens.
Okay,
Yes, I think we can.
all right, so.
How does everybody feel about cutting the 38,173 and engaging with $8,313 in the budget
Yeah.
for ad hoc?
I would think that the hourly number, they're gonna increase it for inflation, they always do.
I mean,
Even so.
we can't account for everything. I'd like the math to work out good.
It'll, we have something.
That's a start.
Yeah.
I mean, we can always,
Like 10 grand.
maybe just make it 10 grand. And see how it goes, Jerry. Can we adjust everyone if we have it? Can Adjust.
We could do a supplemental budget. It's
Yeah, we can do it.
crazy.
We had
Bill
to.
was crazy. We had to call the cops on the phone.
Didn't mow his lawn.
So Jeremy, what does that do for us if we take if we take, what would it be? My math is no good in my head anymore.
38 grand out.
Yeah, so it's
28,000.
28,000 we're taking out by not having that. How does that work for us?
I think the budget always assumed it wasn't there.
Oh, that's right, so now we gotta add 10,000.
We're
We now added 10 to our.
We have to add,
Yeah, we have to add.
add.
We're
10.
8,500.
After this, there's a lot of different things that I need to discuss, and like with the personnel stuff, I can't do that on the fly tonight.
Yeah, we're not gonna, it's not running total here.
So that means we'll be meeting next week. Right?
Yes, we'll have to meet next week for me to, put all these numbers in. there.
Okay,
But that's good.
yeah.
So is everybody like 10,000 or is everybody like 8,313?
I like the 8,000.
I like the 8,000.
I do too.
Okay, all right.
It's just, I like down here that.
Oh.
Okay,
That sounds like everything $9.
so we answered number 5.
5 and 6.
And 6.
5 and 6.
Okay.
So
I think number 7 is if you have to remove kind of.
Wait a second, we haven't done,
let's go back to 2.
I would say we gotta do 2 and 4 here.
We were trying to do the easy ones.
We are.
I just, but I'm gonna have to, well, you're an accountant too, because we want to go down that. Okay, so number 2, do we keep the 8,000 budget in salary study? Or do we reallocate those funds to pay for raises? A 2388 budget for general fund for this salary study with the remainder allocated to water fund, sewer fund, street fund, and building. Didn't we already, I mean, we've kind of,
Can I jump in real quick? I don't want to share anything that shouldn't be shared in this room, but
We're being recorded.
I know. That's why I'm being very careful with my words. I feel like we maybe, as a city, made some commitments to employees over the last year to do a salary study.
Did we?
Did we?
say that again, let me turn these up.
I advocate for a salary study just because I like to know where we're at. I think it's unfair that we're just operating in a limbo in terms of where we're at with the industry standard. So.
And the budget.
I think at some point, we need to level the playing field and find out truly where we're at. And not just by having a city employee sitting down and calling 20 other cities. I think that the data that comes out of this is important. And we may not have to do it again for a while if we do it once.
And how are we gonna implement it?
What do you mean?
When we get this study? I mean, I think studies are important, so don't misunderstand me. I'm just weighing.
So I think the strategy has to be after we find out the numbers, but I think it's gonna be a lot different if we find out that we're 5% off from industry standard versus 15% off from industry standard. I think you're gonna end up with 2 different strategies on how to adjudicate that. You might be able to make up a 5% one year, you're not gonna probably make up a 15% one year, it's probably gonna take a multi-year strategy to get their salaries caught up.
I'm not trying to speak out of turn, but to be more blunt, I feel like in our conversations with the Public Works Department, this is something we committed to when dealing with employment issues. So.
Okay,
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, to elaborate on that point. My intention behind, adding this salary benefit survey was to have an opportunity to engage our team with a consultant and providing input on what their job entails and what some good comparables would be as a good faith effort for us as an organization to demonstrate that we take retaining talented people seriously, and this is a step in that direction. I understand it may not be possible to do everything all at once, But we can at least show that we care about the issue and we're making progress.
And is this $8,000 is in the budget as an expenditure right now?
It is.
So it doesn't affect.
It doesn't affect
Students
anything.
have fixed
Right,
things.
I think we were looking at it to take it out to help with other things.
Exactly.
Or help with the pay raises,
Yeah. and
but
we're
now
good,
I don't
so
feel that it's as much of an issue.
That
So
was
I say
where,
we keep it.
yeah, but now that we've come up with another way.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
So I will respectfully disagree. I'm all for paying people what they're worth, and this is an excellent way to find out what that is. I went in a union environment, got my employees outside of contract a pay raise, so believe me, I care about the people who are doing the work. The difference was that I'm seeing between this situation and that is that my department had the money. And we're struggling, the city is struggling to find the money. And so that's the difference for me, is I love paying people what they're worth. And that's very valuable for retention and all sorts of things. When we have the money, we're not struggling to cut all these things. So that's my input on it today.
As a. Go ahead.
Raise your hand or?
Sorry, I'll keep
As
that.
as a business owner, I've done some studies about employees. And money is not everything. And you need to understand that. It's the satisfaction of the job, well done, and some of the other parts of it. Money does make a difference. I mean, you have to have money to survive. But, the horrible thing is we do this study, we find out we're 20% behind what's going on in every other city. And the employees find out, damn, we should be getting more money. You know, what I think is important is to talk to the employees and say, okay, guys, here's a study that we're thinking of. How would you feel if you find out you're not doing as well as somebody in another city that may actually have more cost to live there? So they need more money. As I said before, if you live in New York City, you probably should, or California, you should at least get $20 an hour work at McDonald's. But not here in Lowell, if we had a McDonald's here.
Well,
It's kind of a touchy subject, it really is, and the fact that you brought it up, that's fine, Jeremy, but you have to understand that money is not the whole reason to work in a certain situation.
so I don't disagree with either one of you really, because, you know, there is that concern. That's, you know, one of my concerns is how are we gonna fix it once we know, but that's another thing. Money isn't everything for a job, but we are living in a really tough time right now, and people are struggling, and we have younger employees with, they're starting their families. I think, I'm glad you pointed out, Jimmy, I think the fact that we make that effort, we may have to go to them and say, this is what it is, and, you know, and say, this isn't something we're gonna fix tomorrow. But I think doing it tells our employees that we care, that we're looking at it, we're not just shoving it under the rug, and they matter, and we're trying our best. And if you think they're not looking around in this environment, this economy, they, you know, I mean, we're in a terrible economy. I don't care what they say, where the people can't, you know, buy food. I don't think we're in that situation with our employees yet, but we don't want to put them there. And I think we have to face the reality that money is gonna play more of a part in it now than it did maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. People want to stay. I don't think that's the issue. I just think the reality is, you know, they're gonna look around. And so the least we can do is show our interest, our care, and show them that we're trying. We want to meet standards, so, I think as long as we can We haven't gotten to 4 yet, but I'm assuming we sort of came to we're coming to something where we can do something for them. And that's another thing I believe is important for our employees. Tim will remember, we got to go through the freeze with the federal government. It was about 3 years with no raise. We did get our steps if we happened to have one, but it's kind of discouraging. It's not like we were dying or anything else, but now every penny counts to these families. So I would have argued maybe differently if we couldn't give them a COLA, and that would make the difference. But I think we should stick with it. It's in the budget. We've managed to balance everything else, and it looks okay, so.
Getting the feeling that we're not every 100%, but I think we're about 70% on agreement on keeping the 8,000 in there. Or do we do a vote? How do we do this? Jeremy, to figure out number 2. Do we just, who wants it and who doesn't, the raise of hands, or do we?
I would,
Next.
Well, no, I'm not raising my hand for her again.
Oh.
I was just gonna make a comment.
Yeah.
Jerry sent out the updated package, right, that everybody has. So, of course, everybody, me and my staff read this, of course, and I was just gonna give you guys their opinion on it, what they think. Here's the thing, there's no surprise, they know how they stack up against other people, and they're not comparing to Portland or anybody else, they're comparing to Oak Ridge, Crestwell, the people that we talk with, deal with, go to schools with, go to training with, like that, right? However, like I explained to them, there's a lot of other benefits. We currently do not pay a penny for insurance. The city picks all of that, right? Which a lot of other ones do too. But what I was getting at is when seeing this, both of the staff members said, oh, I'll call every municipality in the city, right? And gather the data or whatever. So that shows, I looked at that report that was supplied in the document, and there's so many caveats in there, right? It says only wage, benefits and insurance, and it says so many times on there, does not count other things and this thing and that thing. So is it going to be a fair comparison? Possibly, but what I think you're going to see is it's going to weigh so heavy on the insurance costs, because everybody can look in the budget and see how much we pay for insurance here, that it's going to lower the pay scale. Not for all positions, just in some. That's what I think. We pay an absolutely not awful amount of money for insurance. That's what I think is going to happen.
You mean with the study?
Regardless if we pay somebody or if we do it ourselves, because,
And then we can say to them. This is.
well, you could,
Yeah.
yeah, but
So Max, you're saying they were interested in having a study. Is that what I'm?
their comment was, John, I believe it was you or Lisa, or Bill, somebody made the comment about $8,000 last week. It was you, or maybe the guy that was here. He said, well,
Yeah,
how about instead of spending it, you give it as raise, right?
Oh.
Somebody said that.
right.
That's exactly what they looked at, $8,000. I said, well, I'll do it in, my time.
Oh, that's what they meant.
Yes.
I can name that too, and it's fine.
They realize what the budget is, and obviously we care about all the budgets because it's a team here. It's not,
Right.
water park, sewer.
Right, well, you're all looking at each.
That's, well, right, but I mean, Jeremy, Sam, with
Right,
everybody, it's a team thing.
Yeah.
So, we look at things like that, but
I kind of agree with,
But,
with what I think Max was saying, or maybe I've got it wrong, but, myself, working with employees, giving pay increases, that's sensitive, okay? And you can make, I don't think you can make friends, but you can make enemies if you do it wrong. And, if you tell a person that, we're gonna be able to give you a 2% raise this year, but we're spending $8,000 on a study. He said, man, Crestwell, whatever, they're getting 4.5 to 5, and they're not doing the study. And also what I hear is, okay, if we're 20% low, and say next year we're gonna bring them up 5 and then another 5, and about the time we do another study, we're gonna say, well, shoot, we're not catching up fast enough, we're still 15-20% low. So we're gonna, we're gonna be behind the curve there. These employees, they're thinking about now, and if a study brought them you know, something more quickly, I think they'd be into it, but if it's something that's gonna be down the road, I don't see the excitement on it, but I don't know.
It sounds like they've already kind of done some of the work already, just by what he's saying.
Yeah.
Like in my industry, in the wood processing industry, we know what Western Pneumatics is paying their guys because we're losing our guys to them and then their guys are coming back over here. So we kind of know, and it sounds like what Max is saying,
The headhunters.
his guys know.
Headhunters come in and tell them exactly what they can pay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Since it sounds like we're gonna have another meeting anyway. Instead of this being this vague nebulous, well, let's just give them the 8,000, let's find out what that actually would mean.
I was gonna say that.
So could you help us understand that for the next meeting, if? Because it seems like we're, regardless of this, trying to find a way to do COLAs or whatever. If we keep the $8,000 study and we come up with this COLA, great. What if we don't do the $8,000 study, and we convert that into pay from employees? What does that actually equal for them? I think that would help us make this decision. Because I'm still in support of it, because we are always gonna be behind the curve, but we're never gonna know, and we're never gonna be able to show our employees that we are trying to make concerted efforts to deal with this without doing something like this.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but I think they should start the budget. I think we should budget for a future year to put that 8,000 into it so that we can do it. Right now, we're kind of in a tight spot.
No, right now we can do it, we just figured out how we could.
Maureen is in bus.
All right, I'm listening well, and I'm sort of changing my position. Number one, because partly it's already in the budget, and I do recognize what Jimmy's saying. I would like us to be clearer on our expectations for a survey. For instance, because I can't imagine anybody doing a survey that doesn't break this stuff out, because it says, here's what the base wage is and here's what the adjustments. The adjustments aren't listed out. I've never done a survey like that. I've done them 10 times for the school district. And you break every single thing out, and then you put it in a pie chart so you can see just how much people are paying. Then we can plug it in with what our real stuff is. Each individual, can do that for themselves. You have to have an average for your insurance. But to say, here's the base salary and then here's with adjustments for everything glommed in, man alive, I don't want to pay 8,000, I don't want to pay 800 for a survey like that. So I support doing the survey, not whatever it costs, but maybe if you're saying get a little bit better number, I'm perfectly willing to keep $8,000 in there as long as we get something better and more usable than this. I think we need.
And actually, the estimate that we got was,
Well, she's talking about,
7791.
but she's talking about what they're gonna give us with that.
Right, yeah.
Because that's absolutely, insurance is a huge thing, and that can vary. What does that mean? Here's your insurance. Oh, well, that'll pay for $100, whereas, and that's comp to another thing that's paying $2,000 a month for your insurance. That's not comp. We need to know what those numbers are.
Max, you're the shop steward.
Well, we're not.
What are your employees telling you? Is our people out there really dissatisfied with working here in Lowell?
Well, they wouldn't be here if they were. There's other perks other than pay. However, and I've made this comment to you guys during council meetings and everything. We realize we're not going to be the next Cottage Grove, Crestwell, Oak Ridge, even if 3 times the amount of people we have. Just want to be paid closer to fair. That's it. And here's the thing, I'm telling you guys right now, we might be there if you look at the whole pack. Well, we're not. I'm just saying we can be closer than what they're seeing. I think the benefit of doing it, just like Marie just stated, and the original reason that Jeremy was talking about it is you don't realize how much when you're not paying anything for insurance, how much that weighs. So that computes to a number on paper, but all they're looking at.
$200 a month.
Yeah.
What is it?
Used to be $200 a month for teachers over here.
Oh, well, it's not
19
even.
years ago. It ain't that.
Pocket
Close
Exactly.
to that.
And you also gotta look at the deductibles and out of pocket too.
Well, and yeah, that's a different.
That's all in.
So
Plus-
now I'm kind of hearing we're back to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did the city promise that we would do this survey for your team?
It's not like what Jimmy
Is that
said.
your understanding?
Well, I would.
I don't know if we
We'd
should
have
be-
to read through that, there's no secret, it's not a secret at all, but.
I would like to see us have our cake and eat it too. I'd like to see us give them a high COLA and also do the survey. Like the average COLA, I Googled it today, from paychecks was 3.6. I'd like to see it do like 4.
Yeah, state of Oregon for our area is 3.9.
Yeah, to do a 4% COLA and do the survey.
Maybe you should call it just a straw poll raise hand on this issue.
On the 8,000. What?
I think it's interesting, I'm not gonna change the amount of COLA that I advocate for the employees of the city based on whether or not I do the study or not. I'm not gonna go, well, we saved $8,000, so I'm gonna kick that back in to go more on their COLA. I'm gonna do the COLA whether it's fair.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's interesting that people like, that your employees are like, well, we'd rather add the $8,000 because I'm not weighing that.
Well, no, they didn't say that, they said keep it in the fund and they would do the study. They didn't say they would take it as a raise.
That's bad.
Yeah.
We'll work overtime on it.
Well, but we're not gonna ourselves, as much as I'd like to, I can make the phone calls, I could volunteer to do that. But like Maureen said, we need it so broken out, you even said it, actually, Max, if they can see it broken out by every single category. And they can say, but if I go to Crestwell, I'm actually gonna lose money because I have to pay more in insurance. They need to see that, and that, that
Sometimes,
is, I didn't look at it closely
And-
enough to realize they didn't break it out like that. So
sometimes they need to
my-
experience it before they.
Well, and I'll reiterate for you guys to exactly what, and this is during the evals, and Jeremy can vouch for this. Jeremy asked them what they wanted to stay, right? And just like my conversation, all three of us, not one person has ever asked for more money, ever. They asked for Jeremy for an opportunity to grow in that position. Is that not what they said?
Yes.
And that's exactly what we did. So adjusted the pay scale and gave them the worst case scenario, 10 more years here and looking at a timeline moving forward, right? That's what we did. There is huge other incentives working here other than wage, salary, and benefits. I'm just telling you guys that right now. If it was a wage issue, neither one of them would still be working here. I promise you guys that. Do I think we need to do something to see where we're at? I agree with somebody's statement that made that. But, historically, look, when I first started here and recently until a couple years ago, the reason we get behind is because the pay scales are never adjusted for COLA. I've had one COLA in the 10 years I worked here, one. Most cities, it's just part, you have a 6-step system. I'm not saying you get a step increase every year, right? Especially if you're at the top of the scale, but it's adjusted for COLA. Last year, the CPI for rate was 6.9%. Right? So if you got a 3.5% step increase and COLA was 6.9, you lost money. That's what happened. So that's the biggest thing, right? We realize where we're at. We have a good range. We've talked about it, we've looked at it, right? As long as we keep up on those times. But yes, I agree with what somebody said about the detail, right? Because one of the things I've been preaching about pretty much since Jeremy got here is a lot of other municipalities, and right now you're not gonna like this, another couple other is they pay the contribution board of PERS for the employee, right? It's 6%. To the city, it's not a whole lot of money, but to the employee it is, because every dollar you earn, 6 pennies of it is getting taken away, right? If you look at it that way. So that's a small way to do a raise. The problem is once you start paying for it, and you guys know what the PERS rate is, it's very high.
Yeah.
So there's a give or take on it. Yep, it's a lot of things to look at, and that's why I think the whole wage salary benefits thing came up. If it includes everything,
And
vacations.
just actually help us understand where we might where we would do those increases maybe. It's not necessarily just a wage.
Well, and here's the thing, it might not be every employee either.
Yeah,
You might look at it and me, Jeremy, and, the new FTE and somebody else might be perfect. Or it could be the exact opposite. Everybody else is good except for Sam or whatever, you know what I mean?
yeah,
You just don't know because we don't know. And that's what somebody has said.
Yeah.
We need to know where we're at.
okay.
I'm not advocating for or against you guys. I'm just telling you how the emotions will go across
And
staff.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to address, committee member B. Wilson's previous question. I will state that I made a commitment to the team that I would advocate for this study. I also said that it needs to go through the budget committee process. and I didn't make any promises. But I said I would strongly advocate for it because I believe as a leader in this organization that this is important for the team. And I also communicated the timeline that would be involved in that. So I understand that budget committee has a decision to make, and I'll respect that, but in my professional opinion, I believe that this would be a wise investment.
Jeremy, do we have, it seems to me, I mean, in the private sector, there's no dictation of, you know, of this kind of thing, but city of Lowell is a government type thing, so do you think that this is a responsible thing to do by pulling in a third party group to look at this stuff, to make sure that we are on track? Whether, because it seems like we were kind of talking about, the employees of the city, let's do it for the employees, let's do it for employees. But also we kind of need to do it for staying up to date and in compliance, staying relevant as a city
That's
governmental organization.
yes, that's a great point. So it is a useful management tool. So that I can look at our entire compensation package, think creatively about it in conversations with employees. But it also gives me an objective basis when I have conversations with teammates. To be able to say, you were involved in this process and picking out comparables. And it shows that your salary is actually pretty good where it needs to be. Or it may say that the improvement is needed, but it provides that objective basis, which is valuable. And also, Oregon has a law that mandates pay equity. I would have concerns about members of staff conducting salary surveys on their own. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that having an independent third party do that on our behalf might be more. It might give us,
Proactive instead of reactive.
well, it might help us better comply with the pay equity requirements.
Yeah.
Listening on that same way, I would like us to be able to agree to the comps. That's the key, because that's another thing that if I go do it myself, then I can kind of pick and choose. So agreeing to the comps, I think we ought to have third party professional. And then also, depending on, again, if it's broken out right, maybe there's ideas that come by there with our insurance or whatever. I don't know when the last time we went out to bid, but that might show us against our comps that we're not getting the best deal on our insurance that we thought we were, and that might give us some leverage to do something better for our employees. So
What? We have to bed medical every year? Just easy,
Is council Weathers volunteering to work with our city administrator on coming up with the comps?
well, that's easy to do.
And you mentioned you've done this with the city,
Right.
with the school.
Yeah, and the comps, we would need to tailor it for Lowell. I mean, there's, it's comps with cities and comps with positions. So I like the idea that somebody said early on, I think Jeremy, you did, about involving staff and
Yes.
defining the jobs, because you can say water plant and one water plant is not the same as another water plant. So we can do that.
Yeah, descriptions, job descriptions.
Yeah.
Just because you're under one doesn't mean you need to go to a million other things.
Yeah, so there's comp cities and there's comp jobs.
So to help for the next meeting, 'cause right now I'm kind of like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. I think we need to kind of feel where we're at, so you know what to do for the next meeting.
I think we can answer the question.
Okay, so,
We just answered the question.
okay, so who's for the study? What's your question? Who's here for the study? Who? Okay, so the study's
I didn't hear your last.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I did this, didn't I? I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
So the study stage,
It sounds like he made a semi-commitment to the employees.
Made a commitment.
Yeah, so what's, I know he qualified it, but employees don't get qualifications, they just do.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not only for them either.
None of us can
It's
commit
for,
to
if we're ever looked at as a city, and they're like, when's the last time you did a comparison or shop, or, well, we haven't done it in 20 years.
You guys, it's about future hires too.
Yeah,
Yep.
so, okay, so,
Well,
Okay.
Right.
If somebody needs, what you brought up about the study is very important. Is how big the study is really gonna be. If it's just about salaries, I think we're wasting our money.
Yeah.
If, as you say, a pie chart to show insurance and
I think there's a couple of things in that study. We got it around 2 or 3 or 1 or 2, and I didn't get the chance to look at it.
I know, I'm sure they have the detail, but the way that they presented it for a person to use,
Right.
I think was a little,
Well, I like your idea, Maureen, about dictating to it a little bit, saying, okay, we're gonna pay you 8,000. This is what we expect to see.
Well, that's something we can work on.
Yeah.
In the future, but the point is.
I think it's for the budget, we keep that in the budget.
Okay, so now,
Okay, well, I'd just like to say one more thing. Again, I respectfully disagree with this decision. However, if we're gonna go out and get comps, they need to be a lot closer than what I'm seeing here.
what's that?
In terms of population, in
What,
terms
I
of,
mean, what's that?
oh, this is
Oh, is that,
The actual study
city
that.
attorney.
oh, okay, yeah.
That's
And
correct.
looking at this from an appraisal standpoint of other things, I don't feel like these are really close. But I don't know which one of these have water plants and sewer plants, all that.
Yeah.
That's super important too.
But we'll know and
But
find
that's
out.
just
But
a
that
sample
is
for
the
Turner.
tax base of the population.
That's just a sample for Turner, not for Lowell.
I understand that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm saying.
That's why I say, I think we should agree on the comps.
Yeah, so I
Right,
think
right.
if you guys take a look at that and
We-
really make sure those are good comparables.
Before the
And
check
then
is written.
the population, but even, like this is, Turner is 2,800 population, some of these are double that. And I would never use the city with double that, because you got a tax base.
Right, but also
But
like,
pick the comps.
so also like, I'm thinking back in my real estate days. When you do a comparative analysis on properties, sometimes you have to reach out to stuff that isn't a close match, and you make adjustments up or down.
And the more adjustments you make, the worse it is.
Word, yeah.
And
The less reliable.
the less reliable, thank you. So if you guys are really looking at the comps and like you were saying, like that's as close as we're gonna get, because there aren't, because I've looked at Oregon cities of 1,000 and some population, and there aren't that many. Now, I wasn't searching water plants, and that's important.
Yeah, what they do is.
Okay, so we've got, any more? Okay, I want to move on to 4 now. So we've got 1, 2, 3. So here we go, 4. Okay. Do we look at pay raises, such as cost of living adjustment for fiscal year 2024?
Can we come back to that one? Because I think there's some other questions.
You want to do something else?
Are there?
I just think like 9, we need to know what the sewer fund.
Oh,
All
and
needs to be, before we start talking about COLA.
is that something that you need to do for next year or next meeting?
So we can continue to talk numbers based questions, answer those.
Yeah, because that one feels like once we know the totality of other things we spent, then we can make a decision. But if we make that now and then we address the sewer fund, it seems a little backwards.
So 7 and 8 are non.
Okay, so
Basically.
So really, for next week, all we have to do is answer 4 and 9.
4 and 9. Okay, so 4 and 9 is tabled, we will do 7 and 8. Over here?
Yeah.
did we do 3 already?
Well, let's go back to 4 real quick.
Okay. Good.
Because, I can't. If we plug in any pay increases, that affects dozens of accounts. And I can't make those changes in a meeting. So what I would ask for tonight, knowing what we saw previously. If I feel the water fund and the sewer fund can absorb without any changes to their rates, a 3.5% COLA. So I'd like to just go ahead and plug those in and come back and show you the financial condition. And then we can have a discussion about setting what those rates are gonna be.
I was thinking 3.5% on the goal myself.
Yeah.
well, you all were
3.5,
talking,
4. I was thinking.
I was
3 or 4,
thinking,
but
yeah.
But if you're saying 3.5 is gonna fit, let's,
Yeah, so you think 4 is gonna be too high, Jeremy, just off the top of your head?
I don't think it'll be too high for the water and sewer fund, I'm just trying to keep an eye on the general fund.
So, okay, well,
Because we've already added almost 10 grand for police service.
that's right, okay,
Right.
okay, thank you. So,
oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Well, and
Okay.
we used 3.8 for Santa Pack. What was I think,
The CPI thing.
yeah.
What, in Max, you said the CPI for Oregon.
See,
right now is 3.5.
that's another thing, you can use a bunch of them, you can use different time frames. We need to agree on that,
Right,
and then.
and maybe that becomes
And I
consistent.
think-
When we do the salary survey, we build that in kind of to say, here's what we're gonna, because that's a tricky thing.
Yes,
But for Jeremy's situation, when he's plugging numbers
Yeah.
for next week, he's asking, do we use 3.5? Are we all comfortable with using 3.5 as a guide
yeah,
for answering them now?
yeah,
and see how it's,
no, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
When we pick the number, we will decide for sure next week.
Yeah.
You will see there. Okay.
Well, not. Well, there's- That's what Germany's saying. Yeah. So when you do a COLA, you just, even regardless of where your ideas, do it across the whole state.
It's more asking you, so there's no step increases in the budget for employees this year, the COLA will be the only.
Correct,
Yeah,
and as Max was
You will
saying, that,
so.
that would shift the pay scale up 3.5%. But you'd still remain within the same step.
okay,
Typically, we do.
but that's at least, that's, yeah, I just feel like we need to think about that.
Are we saying there's no step increases because nobody's due for a step during this budget cycle?
Everybody, as far as I know, got satisfactory reviews. It's just the condition of the budget. Because we went from no COLA, no raises to we're at COLA right now, which is better than nothing. So,
How much is a step increase? On average,
All-
not a dollar amount, a percentage.
3.5, all of them.
They're all 3.5. Each step has a 3.5.
Is there any reason we would be doing the COLA instead of a step? I don't understand. If we're not doing steps, why not do steps instead of COLA? Is there some benefit to that?
It raises the entire schedule up to keep up with inflation rather than keeping your bottom one lower.
I meant from a budgetary standpoint, does this change our financial outlook doing a step or a COLA?
No.
I get it from,
Unless somebody's maxed out and doesn't get one.
as an employee gets COLA, I definitely get what you're saying there.
Yeah.
I just want to
If
know.
half the staff was always already at the top step, that would be like giving a benefit that doesn't matter to anybody.
Yeah,
But that's not the case.
So, number 7. What are the budget committee's thoughts on your recommendation for a local option levy to fund capital improvement related to East First Street? Options include recommending that city council place this on an upcoming meeting agenda for further discussion. Take no action at this time on referring a local option levy to the voters in November. Wait and see how the circumstances play out later in the year. In the meantime, evaluate grant and if necessary, loan opportunities. And number 3, some other action. Good question.
I would vote to put this on the city council agenda, because it's more time to advertise it, to have public come and give comments. It would allow conversation that's more detached from the budget standpoint. I know Maureen has experience doing this, and I think that would be cleaner with meeting requirements if we did that in a city council discussion versus a budget discussion. So I would say my vote would be to put this on the city council agenda.
Good. Ladies first, Gail.
Jeremy, do we have enough time to get this on the November ballot?
If a decision is made soon, yes.
And do we have enough time to really advertise it and educate our community so they'll vote for it?
This is the non-budgetary discussion that I was suggesting, and maybe more
Okay.
relevant for a city council.
Okay. Okay,
No,
I have a question, I understand you've already spent $45,000 or $46,000 in legal fees.
It's stretched over a year and a half now or more.
That's correct.
Okay. Do we have a lawyer? Does the city pay a lawyer to, a contingency to work each year for the city?
You mean a retainer?
Or a retainer,
For our ordinary legal services, that's just billed on an hourly basis.
when, so you had to go for a different set of lawyers to work on this?
We have outside legal counsel working on our case.
because of their specialty.
And what have they actually done? Just send letters to different insurance companies? Or
I can't discuss the legal strategy, but what I can say is there's a trial scheduled in October, and we're working on all the steps that are involved there for a trial. A lawsuit has been filed and it's working through the process.
That was my only question. I'm wondering what you did with $46,000 and why we have a lawyer, a city lawyer that can't handle some of this stuff.
We still have to pay them though.
And it's $1 billion company
Yeah,
that we're in
we're
conflict with.
fighting with it.
we're fighting, the big guy. Yeah,
For most organizations, I worked for a large urban county in Colorado before I came here. And anytime there was any lawsuit, it always hired outside legal counsel. Just because it wasn't a good use of, not within the specialty of the county attorney's not.
Right.
The U of L has an on-campus law firm, basically, in the general counsel's office, and we use outside counsel for specialized instances.
Especially for
It's
the-
very, it's clean. It's very common.
Okay, one.
Maureen.
I vote for I.
So what is your,
Some other. Yeah.
I is, I would bet the cost of this repair. That a levy to pay for the first street repairs would not get enough votes to even, it would be an insult, it would show how out of touch we were, there is no way that this would,
well, yeah, the question that hit me, when I first read this is,
That's your right.
is how many people are affected by
Well, that.
this? I mean, I've driven through there, but there's only like 3 or 4 houses, right? Or am I completely wrong?
Well, it's the whole street, they, I mean,
The whole street,
20 or 30 now.
20 or 30 houses,
Well, and
okay.
then,
well, so that's
and then
not-
there's another street, they're all going down to avoid.
Oh, okay, so it's not like,
To be fair,
yes,
that road only got paved in 2001. I'm just joking,
It's
totally joking.
Yes.
It's been a gravel road until we started that subdivision.
Hey, don't laugh, that's my line.
right, and it's just gonna get worse because we're growing. We're growing. But I'm kind of going back to, Jimmy's recommendation is put it on the city council.
Okay, well, we can do that and have that same discussion.
Well, it'd be good to get more hopefully more of the public to come in and talk about it
Well,
and see what they think.
And we can get into the more political,
well, I'm.
citywide.
I think you're nuts.
All you're gonna get that are gonna come in and talk about are the people that aren't.
It's how incompetent we've
It's
been
gonna be
and not
people
getting
that
it
go
fixed
there.
already.
Why is this?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that's the only important.
it isn't that wrong to hear, it's.
No,
It's
I'm
not
just
wrong
saying,
to hear, it's just.
not if you have
But it's
the
not.
goal of having an informed public about
Trying to.
about a solution.
But also, there's a time frame thing, I think, in the closer we get it to October, the more information we'll have. Or be in a better position, because
About what?
if, Jim, didn't you tell me that something starts, we have a court date in October?
The trial is set for October.
We can't, there's not a lot we can tell the community.
Right, right, but I guess my feeling is that it just seems like the more we're closer to October, better,
Well,
it would be, but I mean, I'm still on high that we.
I think it's worth, we can have the discussion in the
City council.
city council,
Okay,
but
all right,
we also have to recognize that you're talking about those people up there that it matters to, and the rest of the city's gonna say, why am I gonna pay for that? So that's just my half.
Well, if you don't talk about it in the council and we don't have and I'm not a auction levy fan, what is the other option? Just wait and see how it plays out?
I like Bill's idea that he suggested at the last meeting, which is do a single lane overlay on it for much cost. Traffic, this isn't a highway going up that road, if they can't wait for each other to go through that single lane, I mean,
What would that cost? I mean,
I'm guessing it would be like 20 grand probably. You know,
I can have numbers for your guys' meeting for discussion if you want. They're not gonna be official, but I can have 3 rough numbers.
and I like that.
If that's what Jeremy wants me to do, or you guys are good with that, I mean, that's easy.
Put it on city council.
Because to pave the whole thing in a substandard manner and rip it all up.
Yeah.
End up fixing it permanently in the next year, not a
Yeah.
good use of money. One single lane through there to allow somebody to pass smoothly over that section, probably fairly affordable and probably satisfactory revenue to the people that are out there.
and that could be
nobody even used
money reimbursed to the city if you win this.
They can
Exactly.
usually crush what they take up, but it's already
I
rough.
don't think that's, no,
It's possible. I think we have.
I don't think that's true. And I think, what I would say before we spend any money on this repair, especially something that's even more permanent-ish, we should probably talk to the lawyer about ongoing litigation.
Yeah, because we don't wanna look like we can.
I think this is a heavier topic
Yeah.
than we are prepared to talk about right now.
If we go
So
out
let's
there,
go to
So
the
for
city
the-
council and we'll,
Right, so
After
for this
that.
budget meeting, for the budget committee. Number 7 is we're recommending that the city council place this on the upcoming.
Please come to the city council meetings and get your input.
Yes. Okay.
So we're going for aye.
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 I'm the reason
and then we'll talk, I.
Right.
Council.
Is there time for next week? Is there time to have that on agenda?
Is there time to put it on?
Maybe we cover this.
Yes.
On number 3.
Because, I mean, if we naturally decide we wanted to do this, but, I don't know.
Number 3 is no, we're not gonna buy the truck.
Well, I said something, I thought we had a little more time on it, but the difference between a 3,500 diesel Ford truck, which is the bigger truck, than a 250 is only in the springs. So how much tailgate weight are you, when you're pulling your stuff around the trucks now?
How much now?
Yeah, how much is a ton weight on,
It depends what we're hauling.
okay, well, let's go for the most.
Tractor, let's just do the tractor for example.
Okay.
Tractor's 12 ton,
12 tons.
so we can't haul, yeah.
How much is a ton weight?
Oh, I don't know exactly. A lot.
Well, see,
It squats my full-size 1-ton diesel pickup.
okay,
Yep.
you have a 1 ton, which
That's-
is,
Yeah.
350 is
1 ton of carriage, yeah.
So, but the power on your truck is the same as you get if you got a bigger truck.
Right.
So, what I'm saying is, one of the trucks that you have now, you could put airbags under that and lift anything you got, which would be a lot less expensive than going out for a new truck.
Except for at the rental companies, and that's why this came up. So we had to rent a truck last year to do a repair, actually at Marine's house. Because they will only.
Wasn't my fault.
And they rent it to. 1 ton or bigger, the piece of equipment we use, which was a back trailer that we could have easily pulled with a worker, I'm just giving us. But they will not let you leave Springfield Rentals or any of the other properties unless you have a minimum of 3/4 ton.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying it's not a big deal right now.
Oh, okay,
It's not, it really isn't,
okay,
so.
all right.
Yep, and here's the thing, in the meantime, if we have to take the tractor in, we'll call Kubota and we'll have them come out just like they delivered it and we'll pay the pickup fee around $150 or whatever it is. Just to get us through, yeah.
Okay,
You know, if it becomes more of an issue in the next 3 years, then
rental of the truck that gets there and back is part of the maintenance or whatever.
The repair and maintenance, that's
So
right.
it slides into that
That's exactly what we did.
expense.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm happy now.
We're happy you're happy.
Yeah.
Didn't figure that one out.
Number 8, on the proposed master fee schedule, should the city keep or eliminate the out-of-city library patron fee? According to the library director, keeping the fee could make the city more competitive in obtaining state grants. That's because the city would be meeting the state's library goal to ensure library services in rural underserved areas. It is not likely, based on the library director's feedback, that the out-of-city patron fee would make us ineligible for funding. I thought there was that said, we said opposite of
Yeah,
that.
Is there a typo in that? Because
I thought last week we said it was opposite. The opposite of that.
yeah, on her original feedback and the way that paragraph written, it doesn't seem to make sense to me that having a fee would make us more competitive because we'd be doing a better job of providing services to rural underserved areas. I think.
Oh, eliminating the fee.
Yes.
That's just making sure y'all pay attention.
This is my baby to fight for this, so I quickly read that one.
So the word keeping should be eliminated. Gotcha, okay, that makes sense.
Which was my point, that does make us more competitive for grant writing. Do you have an idea, assuming we keep the fee, what your new number would be?
I was gonna say, how many people from outside of Lowell come in?
And how many would you coming into the fee?
Just, yeah, because then there's very people who just stop.
Is it a one-time fee? Or is it an annual?
Maybe we probably think.
Ooh,
It's hard to say. A lot of the folks from out of the city who have a card and are using the library may be socioeconomically disadvantaged. And it's, if we get $500 from 10 people, that would be expecting a lot. So it's not gonna balance the budget for us to keep that fee.
How did we estimate $7,500?
I was looking at all of the out-of-city patrons. There are a lot of out-of-city patrons. And just,
I'm gonna speak for Maggie here. I think Maggie would say that if a fee kept one child in this library, that Maggie would not have advocated for fees within the library that she desired.
And I think it's, I'll say,
And I hate to speak
relative, I think it's relatively to the, for a budget to, I mean, is $2,500 really relative? In this case, it wouldn't be. Right, not even, it wouldn't, what you're saying, it wouldn't even.
So, in what danger are we with the library? Or in terms of funding?
Well, we had no fund.
Because we're going to drop the 7,500. That's income. They dropped it to $7,500. Okay.
I propose that this is, if you're gonna talk about a levy for the First Street, then this is where this belongs, because the other part about Maggie's effort was it was volunteers, it was wasn't supposed to cost $67,000 a year on the taxpayers to operate the library. If there's any use of a city sponsored or even district sponsored levy, it'd be for library services.
Oh, I see what you're saying. First Street.
Not
Think about levy for the library.
You know, it's
Right,
required.
because, I mean, isn't there?
I'm not suggesting that, I'm just saying, I
Right.
think that's the discussion for it, but yeah, because clearly. I mean. I don't know. This is a bigger issue, this is again about the First Street making everybody pay for this thing. Now we're gonna make the citizens of Lowell pay for services outside of our area, that's typically not done. Typically not done.
Didn't we say last week that we were going to we were going to drop it down to a certain amount? No, maybe not. Months and months. But the question proposed to us today, tonight, is keep it or drop it. Right?
Well, it's not even, I mean, this is not a valid number, right? So,
Jim?
As the library person in the room. I think it's important to be clear that this is not, we're not spending money on non-town services. We buy the books regardless. Whether or not the citizen of Lowell checks out the book or not, this is not a reduction in service to our own patrons by providing the service to others. And I would argue the incredible success that our library directors had at bringing in grants has been a massive net positive for the town. And since we're on the budget, because that number seems very large, that's 66,000 or whatever the number is. That's the total hit on the budget, which includes all grants, right?
Let me just double check that. I believe I netted out.
But it includes 2/3 of the building. So that's what it's used for, and that's otherwise that.
Is that what we're paying? Is that?
Well, it's all in.
Payment is still not.
The grants aren't used for operating costs either.
Is in that number the,
What would also the utilities, electric.
right, so that's, but still. You know, the idea is to pay that loan off with ASAP, and you're talking about selling our properties to do that, so. You know, that number of operating should go down some,
So
and it's
to
not permanent.
Councilor Murray's question, page 8 of the budget message, the library's budget net of grants and other offsetting revenues is 66,000.
And that includes the payment on the building. And the payment on the building is.
That's just operating, that does not include the debt.
44,800 on personal services and 39,700 on material services.
So that's real money out. Because you just said net, right?
Our actual budget for collections is 39,000.
Collections for the library operation. For staff and material. Grants don't pay for operating costs.
No, I know.
So that's why it's not netted against there.
Why did I think?
Because we haven't included that for Penny's time, but it's, sorry,
I thought it. Eddie's salary was around 15,000.
it's very low. I don't know what that sheet is.
We had a comment over here.
I just had a question, library guy. One of the questions I had, because I didn't know what it was, I think it was called subscription.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that was.
Magazines, newspapers.
Newspapers, if you think of like our ebook packages that our Lowell patrons have access to,
It's for biblionics.
yeah, thank you.
It's for what?
Biblionics, that's the ebook consortium.
But we've never advertised.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this.
We advertised it at the Wednesday workshop on the.
But I've asked for articles for the newsletter.
But so I'm a taxpaying citizen and I like libraries and books, and I've been to the library and I have some friends that volunteer at the library, and nobody could tell me anything about this. And so I was like, I don't know what that is. So is that being used a lot successfully? Is that, I mean, that's a pretty high cost for a subscription for e-books, but maybe it's.
These would be great questions for the library director. I guess we about will know libraries.
Sorry.
Don't know granular detail about us.
Again, and you have to excuse me, but I'm looking at a town of just over 1,000 people. We have this amazing facility, which is really nice, but I think Maggie would just be like horrified to know that now we have to spend. Whatever, I'm not sure the number, every year to operate this thing when it was all volunteer, the books were donated. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but we've gotten pretty far from the original mission. And again, it's the size of the town, and I worry about, we have champagne taste, but we have a beer budget, as they say.
Jeremy, I think you would have a better idea of this. Comparing our library director's FTE, how many hours of the library staff hold by volunteers? My point is that the majority of the hours of the library are staffed by volunteers.
It is.
It is. And I think we stepped up, and there's nothing wrong with that. I know what Maggie's. But I honestly, I think she'd be thrilled.
And we're getting way off
Anyway.
this question, but I'm very proud of our library director and her ability to stretch pennies into champagne.
We clearly need
Fair.
that.
I mean, I think we need to replace our city administrative laptop. I watch Excel,
Yeah.
but
It's 8 o'clock. Do we want to take a break or do we want to keep pushing?
Well, I think we can answer this. and-
Can we answer
And
8 and
then,
we're done?
we have to wait till next week.
Okay, so yeah, we can answer 8 now, then we'll answer it and be done
I
for this week.
don't think it's gonna, I keep. My opinion would be that this isn't gonna generate enough money to make any difference, and I would rather stick with Maggie's real, because it's true. If the kids in the community or outside of Lowell proper can't access this, that would be not meeting or coming up to the election. And I think that's our intention. Our intention is to be available. And I'm really worried that $50, a lot of people would just stop them.
So it's safe to say number 8, we want to go ahead and limit.
I agree, I don't think.
Okay, so as far as the budget goes.
Maybe we need to go with some fundraisers.
Well, we need to,
Yeah, we could do that. We can do that.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's obvious we need another meeting next time. To work on, so we've answered 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. We need to work on 4 and 9. Do you have everything you need as far as what we've answered and what you need for 4 and 9?
Yes, and I believe we've answered 4, 5, going 1, 3, 1.
You're correct. We went with the 10 rate 3.5. Yes, I stand corrected. You're right.
So we're good with that.
Which one is it?
4.
Number 4,
The raise and the COLA.
3.5.
We're gonna see.
We're gonna plug,
Right.
We're gonna plug 3.5.
Right,
And then 9, we discussed water rates flat, or we didn't know was suit.
Right,
Right. So
right,
Jeremy,
right. Water is good.
but what are you gonna assume for
So the
water?
next meeting should be fairly easy. We need.
No, I got a question though.
Yes, ma'am.
What did we agree to on 9A?
I don't think we agreed, I think on 9,
no, we haven't done nothing on 9.
but
I thought we were.
well, okay, so 9A, I thought we were all consensus of.
We'll keep it flat with what?
the current rate.
The current rate, keeping the current rate
So
instead of
change
dropping.
it to the current rates, because right now it includes a reduction.
Okay, all right, yes.
That's what I'm.
Okay, no,
We can
that's-
do the-
Great, I'm glad you said that. Is that
Yeah,
right?
me too, because I was thinking, he was
Yeah.
looking at
So
that.
nine-
both ways.
nine
We're gonna keep both of them at current rates of this current fiscal year, not what's in, yeah.
Right,
Right.
and then with that rate, looking at sewer, so the biggest thing is the sewer. Are we still balanced?
Well, the biggest thing is the water, because in the budget, it shows a reduction, and we're gonna move that back to current.
Well, what I mean, we were closer to red on sewer than we were.
We want to understand, we leave them the same, what that does.
Right. Or
So-
we have to raise
Or
more.
if we need to raise the sewer.
So will you be able to get like a revised budget to us like Tuesday-ish?
Well-
Or we can take a look at it,
I don't,
or would you rather just do it?
I think I can present to you on, let me think about that.
Okay,
Let me think of how best to present it.
So basically, we're looking at basically water, sewer, and general fund. So I mean, we don't need to know, we don't have revised numbers for parks, or revised numbers for buildings.
No,
We
just-
use
just-
general water.
Well, that's
so
all.
we've made some changes that will be plugged in.
Yeah, he makes us change it, it'll roll through the whole thing.
Right, yeah, once you make it.
I was gonna say, we know he's gonna make the changes.
Yeah.
So as long as we settle on the changes, we can approve the budget and then he can finalize the.
Right, but it's gonna take one more meeting, yeah. I mean,
Well, right, but I mean,
Yeah.
after next meeting,
Oh,
after
that's
the
okay.
next meeting,
So,
if we approve the budget, but there's no reason we can't approve it next week.
Well, and remember, budget committee just
and then,
approves it to, recommends it to the
To the
council, then we
same-
still have to the end of.
but unlike last year, I think we're more in agreement or more. Better conversation has happened in the last 2 meetings.
Oh, you're here, no, I thought.
Well, I mean, last year was good, but I mean, it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're good to go.
Mr. Chairman, if
5% raise across the board for all of us.
There you go. Figure out how to zero is.
I was gonna say. You're hired.
Mr. Chairman,
Jeremy, yes.
I'll offer some concluding thoughts to set the stage for next week.
Sure.
What I'll show you next week is how the decisions made tonight affect the financial condition of all of the applicable funds. I believe that the focus of next week's discussion will be specifically on that sewer fund rate. I feel like we've got almost everything else nailed down.
Okay, so you feel good about the FTE changes?
Yes.
Let's see.
Okay, so, that's all business. I propose that the new business, we still push the number one, consider the fiscal year tax rate the next week, since we're gonna be here next week, and we just vote on both of them.
Yeah.
Next week.
I just had brain cramp. I apologize for my misunderstanding last time. Brain cramp on that.
So,
Breathe.
okay,
Oh,
there is, other business, remainder additional budget committee meeting scheduled. So yes, additional budget meeting scheduled for May 22nd, 6 is necessary. Anything else? One more, one place? Right, oh, okay, okay, so I go ahead and adjourn this budget committee meeting at 8:04.
Good work.